I will be giving you a sort of an intro talk, presentation / workshop because it's going to be primarily introducing you to Polygon and the Polygon ecosystem. So as you guys know, Ethereum is a blockchain, and Ethereum became kind of big because it enabled applications to be built upon a blockchain in a method that, technically speaking, Bitcoin can, but Ethereum did it different. And then Ethereum had his own challenges, we'll get into a bit, and side chains started to pop up, or L2s, layer 2s. Layer 2, does that sound familiar? Yes? No? Okay, cool. I've seen one no, so we'll dive into it. So basically, a layer 2 is basically doing transactions on another chain, but connecting it back to Ethereum. That's like a very high-level abstraction of explaining it. And honestly speaking, for the hackathon itself and the purpose of the hackathon itself, this is good enough. If you want to like talk about it, Fabrice here as well, I'm here. We're more than willing to talk about that. But so why does Polygon exist? Polygon exists because Ethereum inherently has some limitations or challenges. And one of the things is gas fees. You know, gas fees, gas prices, doing transactions costs a lot. And Polygon came with its POS to provide cheaper gas transactions. And another thing is to provide it faster. So scaling and not reliability, but scaling and make it more accessible to people to build on a blockchain. So here are some metrics that I'm going to throw around. So Polygon, founded in 2017, we called Matic back then for the OGs, rebranded. Basically, the goal is to make Ethereum infrastructure ready for mass adoption. So accessible, it doesn't take you a ton of money to develop on a blockchain, and people want to remain in the Ethereum ecosystem, EVM, because of the smart contract templates and styles that we get into, but also because of the EVM, so Ethereum Virtual Machine ecosystem. So our goal is to make Ethereum infrastructure ready for mass adoption. This is a little bit of the timeline. Started 2017, and then we started gaining a lot of momentum because, again, the two limitations on Ethereum were is it costs a lot of money to develop on Ethereum, and the second thing is that inherently the transactions limitation. So why build on Ethereum, I guess? And this is also important for Polygon because, again, it's an ecosystem. And you'll see this a lot, that generically speaking, right now there are a lot of blockchains popping up, but I would say like splitting it in bigger chunks. You have probably heard of Solana. We're not going to talk much about that, but that's another blockchain. And then they're based on, and I think it's smart, they're based on Rust. It's a way to, Rust is a programming language. It's a way to access developers. But Ethereum gained momentum, and it's built on the smart contracts are built on Solidity. The technical roadmap for Ethereum is laid out and defined. So usually, if someone heard about the merge, yeah. So the merge was obviously huge, and the fact that they did that really again, underlies how well they're technically and how technically sound it is. Again, so technically speaking, it did have a downtime once. But outside of that, it didn't. So staking in the EVM ecosystem is nice because you're staking in an ecosystem that's accessible for developers. It's easy to develop. You have a lot of existing code bases. You have existing tools, and more tools are popping up for you to build on in this ecosystem. And I'm going to share these resources with you. So even if you know languages like JavaScript or Python, there are SDKs, so software development kits for now, so simple libraries that allow you to even deploy smart contracts without writing Solidity. It's an option. Usually these are more of the simpler templates, but especially if you think of skills and reliability in development, you see the ecosystem going wildly towards EVM and building these abstraction layers on in the EVM ecosystem, making it easier basically for builders to build. And so the simple benefits of Polygon in itself is a good developer experience, accessible, it's quote unquote cheap, it means less expenses to build, and you remain in the EVM ecosystem. And I said it a couple of times, you remain in the EVM ecosystem, and the reason why it's important is, for us at Polygon, we really want to empower communities and builders, which means that if investing in an ecosystem such as EVM might mean other chains and whatnot, but at the very least, we're growing as a Web3 community, and we need to grow. We need to grow a lot, and this is why this hackathon is so important, because we need to build consumer-facing applications. We need to build applications on top of blockchain that have a proper value proposition and that will bring mass adoption. So recent developments. Ethereum scaling is hard. So maybe someone here has heard about the argument that transactions on a blockchain are a lot slower. They will never get to credit card speeds, or they're not there right now, which it's true. And it's also it gives the need for L2 layer 2 chains to exist, because they solve that problem. So how is Polygon gonna solve this? Are we gonna just be layer 2 and then go become a layer 2 on steroids? There's even talks about layer 3. No, we're not gonna do that. We're heavily invested, and I'm actually proud to say, objectively speaking, that we're at the forefront for a zero-knowledge solution. In a nutshell, and for anyone who's going to focus on Polygon ID, which makes use of this technology, there will be a dedicated workshop for this. Zero-knowledge allows you to do batch processing, pre-batch processing, and then it all rolls up back to Ethereum. This is an extremely simplified explanation, which is good enough now, because remember what I said during the open ceremony, MVP, making sure that you have a good idea, but you have features that you can see that work. But zero-knowledge solution is where we're going. And that will further remove these limitations on building in the EVM ecosystem. And these are some of the layers that are on top of Ethereum. Again, very simplified. Modularity is becoming a thing in blockchain. And what that means is, in Ethereum, you store the data on Ethereum, you compute on Ethereum, and you settle on Ethereum. So not in that order, but those are the layers. And what you see right now is some chains will be used for compute, some chains will be used for storing, but the settlement layer will be Ethereum. Again, I think that I'm just mentioning this because some of you might go this deep, and they'll say, hey, I want to use Polygon ID and dive deeper in this. Something that actually I should mention is a couple of people came up to me and asked this, where should I focus to build? What idea? We didn't specify the track on purpose in gaming, DeFi, or zero knowledge, because we want to encourage you to build on Polygon. And to be quite frank, we're focused on everything. We have a gaming section, we have a metaverse section, we have we're focused on very much society-driven project. So bring your own idea and implement is what I would say. So very simply put is we've got Polygon Hermes, which is our testnet, and you should have received, and if not, we'll get that to your resource on how to sign up to a testnet and get fake Matic to instead of spending money. But if you're gonna develop on Polygon, if you're gonna use Polygon ID, or you want to develop on using zero knowledge, so this is, let's say, the network on steroids, it's already available for you to use. Very quickly, what is Polygon ID? One of the focuses of in this hackathon. This actually, I need to take a step back and say, okay, how do we verify ourselves right now when we travel or when we are making use of an application? And it actually, it forces you to share your information, and sometimes you don't want that. We're forced to, because obviously this is now how the world works, but we all heard about the data leakages, et cetera, et cetera. So in order to preserve that, GDPR became a thing, but from a technological point of view, blockchain technology can enable you to own your own data, and then in an extremely simplified way, you own a box, and the only thing an application can do is, in a certain manner, it checks whether you're 18 or not, for instance. And that box doesn't give any information about your age, but it says yes or no. So that's like an extreme simplified version of what Polygon ID does on-chain. And later on in the workshop, my colleague Manny will dive into on how you can use this on a smart contract level and integrate it potentially in one of your ideas. I'm just going to pause here real quick, and then I'm going to dive into some examples. Are there any questions so far? Yeah, there will be a way to do it. So we've got Fabri, who's an amazing DevRel engineer. He's walking around. He'll be here, and then we've got the Discord server. And if you've got specific questions, yeah. But yeah. There are certain things that certain information. Obviously, you would have to enter. It doesn't, for this example, but just to be clear, it wouldn't have to be your yeah, yeah. But yeah, essentially, you do still need to put data somewhere, so it can be verified. Yeah. Yeah, it could be used as a KYC thing, yes. So to sprout out an example, if you would have one application that does, let's say, KYC using Polygon ID, any other application could ping that application, be it, let's say, Coinbase, trading platforms need to have their KYC in order, and it could ping that application, like, is this a verified person? Did they, submit their ID and stuff like that? Indeed, but that's a use case. KYC is a specific use, but it's a majority maybe, but I've seen very interesting things in it. For instance, someone who wants to integrate Polygon ID with a Telegram, for instance, to filter out bots, etc. So I'm just gonna do a quick round. All right, use cases. This is just to like give you ideas on what can you build on a blockchain. Now, this is a CargoX blockchain document transfer. Maybe if you heard about the logistics of transportation, etc., tracking data, especially uniformity in data, is a big issue. Someone will upload a PDF. I mean, there were times where PDF were not readable. Nowadays, you've got software, or AI that does that very easily, but it's still it can still be tricky. One of the powers of blockchain is that you do data standardization. So ETL processes are like much easier. Does everyone know what ETL is? No. Okay. Extraction, transformation, and load. So that's what you basically do in a data pipeline. That's one of the things that becomes much easier on a blockchain, but verifiability, the encryption layer, etc. So this is an example of something you can do on chain where you have an NFT or a token that you deploy via your smart contract on chain, and now someone can track, and no one can delete an order, so to say. So if someone would say, call, hey, did my shipment, did it depart yet? And they'll be able to check, or you'll be able to check yourself via your application. And once it's departed, no one can go back and say, hey, I need to change the date because I was too late, or I want to change anything. This is like a prime example, a very easy example. And there are loads of other things that you could do. So insurance, something that's completely different. Does anyone know like how a basic insurance company works? So it's like you put money, you give them premium, and technically speaking, they need to safeguard that money, and they calculated the risk. And then when an event happens, they pay out, right? There's a company called Lemonade. If you call Lemonade, they're not active in every country, but if you call Lemonade, they're fully AI-operated insurance company. So if you, let's say, you have a claim to make, you call them, you don't actually talk to a person, then they actually process everything, and they tell you, and then you need to submit your documents. And then technically speaking, if you get past the verification, you get paid. They didn't make a lot of money at the start, but at some point they made a lot of money because they automated that process. This is another step in that, because you can imagine maybe someone needed a payment from an insurance company and said, yeah, we'll need 3 working days to process the payment. You don't need to do that on chain because your payment goes out straight away. You don't need a bank. You don't need to go to pass a payment processor, right? So this is a prime example of how you can automate the entire process on chain with just smart contracts. And then obviously we have these use cases that are maybe more popular, NFT and metaverse use cases. So wine as an asset class, you love wine, you love a specific brand. NFTs give you, a way to buy wine or get access, to a prime club, or even become an investor in that specific wine that you love so much. And then I think that, I'm not sure, has anyone ever heard of 100 Thieves? Yeah, so they did NFT launch, with an NFT launch, and that was actually, on top of my head, it was, I think, the biggest NFT launch one of the biggest NFT launches ever. They had 300K of claims, Polygon NFT claims. And obviously they chose Polygon as well. One thing I forgot to mention is because prior to Ethereum, the merge, Ethereum obviously was a proof of work consensus mechanism, which costs a lot of energy. And at that moment of time, Polygon was on, is and what also is on proof of stake, which is a lot more energy sufficient. So here's some other use cases that you can think of. This is just like to spike the idea, like probably any interaction that you have with an application right now, think about it. Some don't entirely make sense. So if you would, I don't know, you could do it for fun maybe, but Twitter on chain, right? I mean, can you imagine you have to pay for every tweet that you need to do? I mean, I guess that wouldn't really, so I guess that wouldn't really be feasible for someone who tweets a lot. But so it's not a solution for everything. It's not by all means necessary use blockchain, but there are use cases. And often what you'll find is that in your stack, and I don't have the picture right now, but I'll share it somewhere. I've actually got an architecture, a design page, where you can see what a traditional front end and back end looks like and how you integrate a blockchain component. And so one of the things that I will tell you is think about what needs to be on chain and off chain. Yeah, and very quickly, the Polygon ecosystem. I mean, if you have ever seen cloud pictures, like cloud providers and solutions, it's growing rapidly. In everything that you can do within Polygon and our partners, we've got a lot. And that's why also a lot of the resources that I will share, specifically later on in the DeFi sort of resource workshop that I will do, you'll see that I'm referring to a lot of our partners, because they have tutorials how to build on Polygon. They have tutorials on how to build a stack. And you're going to need to use a range of tools and sets to build on Polygon. And it is just like a fun slide, Polygon in the news in what we've been doing. I think that my best tip here today is just go to Polygon Technology /developers. If you go to this page, let me just click if it opens, yeah. What you'll see here is it's a good way to how to get started. It's to deploy your smart contracts or have specific tutorials and there are videos there. It's a great place to start. It's a great place to start once you know what you want to do. So I do think that think well about the design process. Yeah, go ahead. So to answer your first question, I would say that is Ethereum still has a place. And Ethereum will definitely still be very important in the ecosystem, regardless of POS. I would think that from a point of view of, let's say, gas fees, that's one. But another one is that scalability will also become a limiting factor, and that they also have ways to solve that with how they will deal with compute and modularity. But we're dealing that with zero knowledge. So
you can do that with shredding already.
So that would require you very specific SDKs, and the amount of the implementation level is not easy, as per my knowledge. But if you would like to discuss that, we can do that. But as per my knowledge, that would not be easy. And so our way, let's say our strategy would be is that heavily going into zero knowledge would allow scaling to another level. I personally think that what's going to happen is, taking a step back in the blockchain ecosystem, a few big players will remain, just like cloud. Actually, if you look at cloud, it also had not a lot, but quite a few players, and Amazon and Azure just started buying everyone. So, and Google Cloud, obviously. So I think that that's going to happen eventually. Where is our added value right now? We have a really solid BD and partnership team. So if you look at the partnerships and added value right now, but you can wait till things are going to happen, or we can build now, and we're building now. So that's one of my answers. Apart from the fact that, again, we can have this one. You can ask this question better to actually one of our architects, but zero knowledge is where we're going heavy. Zero knowledge is where we have faith, where we believe we'll be able to provide a reliable and scalable platform to build on. And at the end, platforms are going to look like more and more. I mean, that's also what you see right now in the cloud environment. I mean, sure, AWS has a heavy CLI focus. So if you develop on cloud in AWS, people have a heavy CLI focus. Google Cloud and Azure tend to have more of a GUI. But you'll see these distinctions less and less going forward. With regards to the hack, I think that what's going to be important there is that on a technical level, I cannot speak to it. I know there was also a lot of social engineering involved. So for me, to answer that right now, it wouldn't be correct. I think going forward, I'll give you a generic answer, and that might not be satisfying. The space is not matured. we still need to do a lot. And we're doing that on a technological level, on a social engineering level, and we'll continue to do that. So I think that, for instance, I just mentioned, Ethereum didn't have a downtime. It's technically not true. We all know what happened with CryptoKitties. So, was it essentially an Ethereum problem? Not really, because Infura, was also underlying. So I don't want to get into that too much. The problem is that the space as a whole needs to mature. And until that space as a whole is mature, and then we have solved all these bottlenecks, then I believe less and less hacks will happen. But outside of that, the one thing that you're mentioning, I don't know of huge hacks on Matic. These sources to deploy your smart contract, I will say they focus heavy on Solidity and your Solidity knowledge. So if you want to develop smart contracts and you want to use abstraction layers, I can share some resources. I'll be walking around where you just use JavaScript or Python. But this is a great place to start your development journey if you want to deploy smart contracts. Any other questions? All right then, happy hacking.